Hey, good day. This is Rich Larson from Watermark Learning. Welcome to our monthly IIBA certification chat. I had a little trouble logging on, so thanks for your patience here. Hopefully my internet will stay behaving itself, and we're going to get started on the top of the hour. As we always do in these chats, I ask you to submit your questions via the GoToWebinar question panel, and I'll read them out loud and then answer the question. And if I have a follow-up question, I'll ask you through the chat, and then you just send in any follow-up information as you did the first time. So to get started, what I'd like you to do is send me in a question, but put it in the form of just put your name, what part of the world you're in, and anything else like the weather, just to kind of get used to the question panel. And then you'll be ready to rock and roll at the top of the hour with your questions. So I'll be back shortly with you for more updates before we get started. Thanks. Bye. As well as some tips here for application, and then tips later on for studying and passing. So any question about certification is fair game, and any other certifications too. To computer. Okay, great. I'm gonna record to my computer. Yes, convert recordings now. Okay, I'm going to say okay. I want to make sure that you guys get a copy of that. Okay, well, so let's get started. And the first question of the day comes from Lisa. And let me just scroll up to find it again. Question, is a course worth it? That's a great question, as you can imagine. I'm interested in sitting for the CBAP next month. I obtained my CCBA in 2016 through self-study, but interested in some online or virtual prep for the CBAP. Is the ATL course from Watermark worth the $1,400 investment? Well, obviously we think it is because of some of the things it does for you. Let me just kind of quickly summarize. And by the way, Watermark started offering monthly CBAP/CCBA courses just a short while ago, and so you could just tune in and check in anytime. But if you're interested in the anytime learning, which is what you're referring to here, ATL, anytime learning, you can get that and do self-study. So what it will do is thoroughly immerse you into the BABAC, help you structure it, make sense of it. We give you a copy of our certification study guide that will help be a great companion. So as you read the BABAC and may or may not be understanding it, you can kind of check out our study guide for more explanation and examples. Also, you get access to our online study exams, and you could certainly buy the study guide and the online study exam separately, but they're coordinated with the ATL so that you will have them practice on answering questions from each section of the BABAC that you study, as well as access to an unlimited number of simulations to help you tie it all together. And of course, one of the excellent parts about our online study exam are the explanations as well as the BABAC reference numbers so that you know right where to go to for more information, especially helpful if you're getting things wrong. You can go back in and then check it out. So that's just a quick overview. Lisa, if you have more questions, shoot them in. And if you want, I can get you in touch with one of our excellent training coordinators to answer more for you. Hi, Shannon from Thief River Falls, Minnesota. Excellent. Great. Do you have a question yet, Shannon? Let's see. Let me scroll back up to make sure I take them in order. Felicia is saying, I've been a BA for almost 5 years. I'd like to know more about the certification level so I can determine which level to go for. Okay, so let me go back up here for the different levels. And if the slide crawl keeps insisting on rolling, I'm going to have to break out of this mode, and then that'll help. Okay, so if you've been a BA for 5 years, chances are you have enough hours for level 2. But just to kind of quickly go through level 1, it's for new or relatively new business analysts for entering the field or for getting your feet firmly established in the field, especially if you don't have enough hours to qualify for some of the other ones. Let me see, let's back up. Here's a better slide for us. The ECBA has no work experience requirements, and the CCBA, as you can see, hopefully it's larger. I'm going to maybe, whoops, I'm not going to be able to make it larger. All right, I'll read it out loud. 3,750 hours in the last 7 years. And CBAP requires 7,500 hours in the last 10 years. So you can see that they're somewhat extensive hours requirements. I'm guessing you probably have at least enough for the CCBA. And what that means is that hours doing business analysis work. It doesn't necessarily have to be your title. You could have been a presenter, or you've been some other role like a tester or even an application developer. As long as some of the work involved doing things like eliciting or analyzing or managing requirements, let's say. You also have to have knowledge area focus. So for CCBA, you have to have at least 900 hours out of those total 3,750 in 2 knowledge areas, or 500 hours spread amongst 4 different knowledge areas. For CBAP, it's even more rigorous, 900 hours in 4 out of the 6 core knowledge areas. For the first 2 levels, ECBA and CCBA, you need 21 hours of business analysis training. That's what the professional development requirement is. You have to have training specifically in it. And by the way, your earlier question from Lisa, our ATLs qualify for those hours of experience if you haven't got them. 21 hours for the levels 1 and 2, and then 35 hours to qualify for CBAP. There's some other requirements as well here too that are summarized in this, as well as, of course, they're talked about on the IIBA website. And our education coordinators frequently answer people's questions about this, and so they'd be happy to talk to you some more depth if you have specific follow-up questions. Shannon is talking about those very same things about the PDD hours for documenting. So for the professional development hours, if you took a Lean Six Sigma black belt and green belt, and black belt by certified trainers, I have heard tell that that does not qualify because it's not business analysis training, even though you think that much of the training in Six Sigma would overlap. I've heard tell that it does not qualify. To be absolutely sure, I would double check with IIBA because things change over time. They may get more liberal or they may get more restrictive. You also have training, so that's scaled Agile, and there again, it's more about the framework in Agile, not business analysis. My guess, I've heard, everyone else does not qualify. So if anybody knows any differently, I would love to know, because I'd love to keep abreast of that, because I'm not constantly in contact with IIBA. So please let me know if you have any more knowledge on my contrary. Okay, Shannon's also asking, is the Watermark Learning spreadsheet by project and PD info under the column reporting to you? So she's asking about a spreadsheet that you may or may not have heard of. If you're interested in applying, we have a great worksheet on our website to help you organize your project hours. One thing I report to you. So she's asking, is this project setting, how many individuals were on it? I would suspect it's on the team. So I would go with a more conservative answer there. If you're really unsure, you can always write to IIBA. Their email address is certification at the CBAP. How many 1 to 1.5 page case studies would there likely to be? IIBA has been kind of closed mouth about this, but expect at least 1/3 of your questions. So at least right? The tip I offer you about dealing with the case studies is that they're all over the board, different varieties, and some have graphics, some have just pure text. Rather than studying the case study and then answering the questions, go, maybe glance at the case study real quickly and then go to the questions and see what they're asking you. See what the areas of emphasis on the questions for that case are, because there's probably a lot of information that is superfluous in those cases, designed to, be like real life. I mean, as you're dealing with trying to focus on one little individual thing, you have a lot of noise going on in your lives, and so the case studies will have the same. So read those questions, then go back and study the case itself. I think that's worked well for people to be able to contend with all of that volume of case studies. And by the way, 1/3 of the questions, which are shorter than case studies, they're a paragraph maybe as opposed to a page or two. And so those, I would not do the same approach. I would just read that paragraph and then answer the questions. Christine, hello, is asking, I've been a BA for a couple of years. However, I have very little exposure to RAD and requirements life cycle management. So the RAD is the requirements analysis and design definition. Would Watermark help with providing education theory in the areas that I lack experience in? You bet we have courses for any of those. They're not. We took the approach that we offer skills that are useful on the job, and so we don't have on the RDD. Instead, what we have, of course, on visual modeling essentials. So a course like that would do a lot with requirements analysis to get used to the technique. We have things like the business analysis essentials, which would cover the requirements lifecycle management. So yes, and I would urge you, Christine, to contact one of our education consultants to talk to them in more depth about those courses and when they're available, and whether it makes sense for a live course or whether you would be better off with a ATL, anytime learning, etc. So, okay, so Felicia, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you were having a hard time hearing. I'm seeing that. Am I cutting out for anyone else? Whoops. So Christine is also saying that sometimes your audio goes into slow motion. I'm really not happy with that with the GoToWebinar today. I'm going to look into the audio. Oh boy. Okay. If you can still hear me, I'm going to kind of quickly go to another location and continue the webinar there. So hold on a second. Okay, people, I'm back. Now, are you able to hear me any better with this? I just changed. Oh, thanks, Christine. Anybody else? Oh, so far so good. Thank you. Hopefully we won't get disturbed from where I am. Okay, Shannon has one more question. Just to clarify, when attending IIBA conferences such as BBC, only the pre-conference tutorial sessions count toward PDD hours versus the rest of the 3-day session tracks. That is true. So that's true of any conference or IIBA meeting where there's just a speaker doing more or less a lecture. So anything of a tutorial or workshop nature, like the BBC pre-conference tutorials, do count. Or what the, I'm going off and I'm not finishing your question here, but I'll get back to it, Shannon. What the IIBA Phoenix has done, and I did one of these earlier this year for them, was to do kind of a workshop kind of session, and that qualifies. I also did a webinar for IIBA Palmetto chapter in South Carolina, and what they did is they had me develop a little quiz for them, so that counted as a 1 hour. It wasn't quite as much of a workshop, but with the quiz that they graded, and with a passing score of 70%, they were able to get a PDD or PD kind of hour to qualify for certification. So now to the next part of your question, Shannon. I assume this is true of other conferences like the Professional Development Day in Minneapolis, that's true, or BA World Conferences, that's also true. So any of those kind of conferences where there's just a straight lecture, if you attend a BA World workshop, of course, like a 1 day, that counts for PD hours. So she finishes off by saying, how do you know when conference sessions count versus when they do not? So in general, you have to assume that the conferences do not count toward the PD hours. That's kind of a assumption you kind of sort of have to make, that the conference hours do not count. And to be sure, you could ask, but the way to know the difference is if you are doing any kind of a workshop like we did in Phoenix, where people did practice during the 1 hour session, or else did a little quiz at the end like the Palmetto chapter did, then you can safely assume that those hours count. So I'm seeing that as a trend, and I like it as well. I like having a workshop nature rather than just a straight lecture. Even though I try to make things interactive with questions and answers and my questioning of the audience, I guess I like workshops even better. And if that doesn't quite work out, because like in a webinar, it's kind of hard to pull off, then at least having a quiz to make it more meaningful, or to pay more attention to it, or whatever. I think the people did the questions as we went through the session, though, because at the end I said, well, how much time do you need to do it? And somebody piped up and said, well, we're all done. So whatever works, you know. And I think that was actually very useful to be more engaging during the session. So all right, so can you guys still hear me okay? Great, yes, excellent. Okay, now who's got a question for me for certification so I can answer? So what's you know what? While you're thinking of your question, I'm going to launch a poll. I'm going to launch off. I'm going to launch this poll. Oh man, the poll should be open now. Which certifications or certificates are you interested in? And by the way, the ECBA is a certificate. Because of its different requirements and its level, it's not a certification. So, okie doke. Where's the poll now? All right. Okay, so I think we're going to close the poll and share the results. Hopefully you all can see that. The vast majority of you are interested in the CBAP, and with CBAP and CCBA combined, that's virtually everybody here, and a couple not sure, one IIBA-AAC it looks like. Cool, okay. So that's always good. So Karen is asking, I'm going to close the poll now too, by the way. Let me see here. Step 1, step 2, hide it. Okay. There we go. Okay, Karen's asking, what percentage to aim for when you're doing practice exams for CBAP? What we've always designed our tool for and suggest to people is that you strive for 80% on average. So if you do a simulation and you get some in the 70s and some in the maybe upper 80s or 90s even, that's good because it'll average out to around 80%. And the reason we suggest that is to over prepare yourself for the real exam. What we hear tell is that the real exam has a 70% cut score. And the reason we say 80 and not say 100% is that in order to get to 100%, you end up starting to memorize our questions and then it loses its value. So if you over prepare to a super degree, it'll work against you because then you get so keyed into our questions, you're not going to be as prepared, we feel, for answering the questions you're likely to get on the real exam because we make up all of our questions. We have no idea what's on the real exam. We know the areas that you're going to be tested and the kinds of questions in terms of the Bloom's taxonomy kind of levels of questions and the scenarios and case studies and whatnot, but we make up our own questions. All right, so there you have it. Alan is asking, hello, what is your take on the job potential of ECBA? I think the job potential of ECBA is tremendous. And the reason I say that is that, let's say you're trying to apply to a company and you've got the ECBA and you want to get a job as a business analyst, but you don't have any experience. That's always a conundrum, right? Even entry level or jobs at lower levels oftentimes require experience. And how do you get that if you're just trying to break into the field? Well, I think a certificate like ECBA shows that you're dedicated to this profession of business analysis, and it demonstrates that you've got some ambition and that you've studied enough to pass an exam. And it, I think, opens up conversations with employers when you have interviews so that you have a vocabulary that is reflected around the world in this standard called the BA Body of Knowledge. And certainly when you get past the HR kind of screening and get into the more subject matter expert interviews that you'll likely get, you're able to converse with language that hopefully the organization uses as well. That doesn't mean every organization uses the BA Body of Knowledge, and that's kind of a conundrum, but I think if they say, well, you have an ECBA, what is that? I mean, I've had people tell me that. They get into a job interview and the interviewers have no idea what CBAP or CCBA, ECBA is all about. Maybe they don't even know IIBA. It's a good conversation starter for you to show that you're taking a leadership position in the field, because I think still, even as old as IIBA is, its lack of universal adoption shows that you would be more on the forefront. I mean, that also assumes that you interview well, that you've got some solid work experience behind you, or if you're a student coming out of college, that you have, a college degree, let's say, or you could use your experience, no matter what your major is, to talk about how you would be a good fit, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully I'm not going in too far into this. Yeah. So Karen did a follow-up question, was thinking around 75%, and that's right in that ballpark as well, 75 to 80%. And just as a qualifier, I've had people unfortunately say to me that they got 80, 85% on our practice exams and they still failed their real exam. And, I always feel bad for the person because they put in time and they did their studying. And then I ask, how well did you understand the BABOK? Because that's really key. Doing practice exams is no guarantee of success. We don't guarantee you're going to pass by taking our online study exam. What it does for you is help you understand the BABOK. It doesn't ensure you will absorb it. And that's why other study techniques, whether it's taking a class, reading a study guide, doing flashcards, doing puzzles and games, or whatever helps you learn and absorb best, whether it's individual study or group study or with a study buddy or a study group, there are a variety of things that can help you go, absorb the best. So I always advise people, take a look at your preferred study style. And in our class, we talk about these 4 different types of of learning styles, the red, yellow, green, and blue, which are based on the Insights Learning Corporation's personality traits that are similar to Myers-Briggs and whatever. So the red is a more direct person, yellows are more people interacting, green is more reflective, and blue is more independent and academic. So those 4 different styles should also lead you to how you would perhaps study best and absorb best. Because let's say you are a yellow kind of person that does best by interacting with people, talking and listening and staying active. You would probably have a harder time reading the BABAC on your own, doing practice exams and or even reading a study guide. So and vice versa. If you're an independent study person, you'd be better with those almost rather than in a class, because a class you'd be maybe wanting to get more detailed than the class was, or maybe get too slow for you, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully I'm not going too deep into some of those topics, but great. Another question from Alan. I'm considering between CAPM, that's the Certified Associate in Project Management from PMI, and the ECBA. He says because people with CAPM can also get BA jobs too, and that's true. They can also do a project coordinator job. So what's your opinion on CAPM? I like the CAPM. If you are looking to have more of a hybrid role between project management and business analysis, it's definitely something to consider. If you're a pure project manager, I have different feelings about CAPM, CAPM, because it's more of a junior PM role, and if you're serious about project management, you really need to be aiming for the PMP. And I suppose you could always argue that the CAPM is a stepping stone towards PMP, and you'd have a good argument. I think that depending on how many hours you have, you could then make a good case for getting the CAPM and then working towards your PMP. But if your emphasis is more on business analysis, I still believe in the BA kind of certifications. So it really depends on your career. So maybe, Alan, you can shoot back with what are your career aspirations? Is it purely business analysis? Is it purely project management? Or are you interested in more of a hybrid role? Because a lot of people who do project management, like you said, also do business analysis work. So have you given any thought to that, Alan? And while we're on it, I'm going to launch another poll because we have time and you folks don't have any questions immediately. So I'm going to pick the second poll. How far are you in your certification journey? So poll is launched. It should be distributing to you. There we go. I think people are now answering. Okay, bye, Christine. You got to run off to another meeting. And for the rest of you guys, we are scheduled till the bottom of the hour to go through any kind of questions you have about certification. If you still have more, I can stay on the line. But if you have to leave, bear in mind that you can get the results, or I'm sorry, you can listen to the recording later and catch anything you missed. So I'm going to close the poll because 75% of you have voted. I'm going to share the poll results. Let's see. Okay, 44% are just looking into it, 33% applying, and the remainder of you, 22%, are ready to study. Okay, it's good distribution. So Alan is laughing, probably BA, haha, but still exploring PM role if it fits me. I think that's good. I think it's good to have an awareness of where you're at in your career, what your goals are. As I said, a lot of people fit that hybrid role. And if you were to ask me, I like that kind of hybrid role as well, because I've got my PMP, but I was never ever going to be a full-time project manager. That's just not me. I love business analysis too much, but I have enough project manager in me to do both. And I guess I've tended towards smaller projects my whole career. And that's where being a hybrid role of a BA and PM really works well. And so that's maybe something else to be thinking about too, the size projects you are going to work on. So, and of course, when you throw in the effects of Agile into your future, what makes sense? A lot of people have multiple certifications. So plenty of BAs have gravitated toward the CSM, Certified Scrum Master, and maybe even more to the Certified Scrum Product Owner certificate. And they're really more certificates. They're not certification. I got to be clear about that. IIBA has launched the IIBA-AAC, which is more of a certification in Agile business analysis. So that's a cool thing. It's just got started last year and hasn't really started to accelerate yet, but it's still early days. And so that is something for your future to pay attention to if you are working in companies that are heavily Agile. So, all right. What are the questions kind of answered for you? Because you know, based on where you're at, if you're just looking into it, do you have any questions about the value of certification? I just saw a headline, didn't read the details, that showed that credential holders are earning more income than non-credential holders. But that was an IIBA study, and of course they would want that. I don't mean that cynically or negatively, but there could be some built-in bias in their survey techniques. So, but I want to believe it. I mean, I do think that certifications offer value in your career, but they also offer value to your organizations. It's a win-win because it provides us with a common vocabulary amongst people practicing in our profession, and that's always a good thing. And so those are some extra thoughts. Karen is asking, does Watermark Learning have a study guide for the Agile one yet? No, we do not. We're still taking a wait and see attitude on that. We have a great course on Agile business analysis, as well as an AAC prep. It's a good combo. And we have an online study exam for AAC, so that's proven good for people so far to help them pass. So those are the tools we have so far. Shannon's saying, just because the session was cutting out at the time, did I hear you say the reporting to you on your spreadsheet was more about the project team than direct reporting? Thanks for re-asking that, because I'm sorry about that again, guys. I really feel bad about the audio. Anyway, the reporting to you, I suggest to take a more conservative approach, and that is the project team. So how many people reported to you on your project team at that time? So you might have different numbers depending on the projects, right? So that you do it project by project, so it's pretty easy to come up with the number on that project. So great. And by the way, let me see if I can get this. Hopefully it's still there. If you are perusing our website and you're still looking into it and thinking about applying, go to our, I would start with our certification business analysis CBAP. Whoopsie, there we go, CBAP. It'll pull you to this page. The other thing you can do is watermarklearning.com/CBAP should take you to these pages. There are some things if you're applying it, studying, taking a prep class, study exams, and so forth. But here in step one, I want to highlight this this section right here. And the application worksheet right here that, I'm sorry, I forgot the person who referenced it. Maybe Shannon was the person. Download that puppy and it will, I think, tremendously help you organize your project hours, as well as see how many you have in various knowledge areas that you need to qualify for, and number overall. And you keep adding projects until you have enough. And the other tip I can offer too, real quickly off the top of my head, is that start with the most recent project first and go backwards. IIBA even suggests this. I had a person who went back, she was a BA for 20 years. So she went back to day one when she was a BA and started working forward and pulling out, literally, I kid you not, all of her project timesheet. She's one of those people that kept every timesheet. So she pulled her hair out after, I don't know, a year's worth of those, and she gave up and just started estimating. And I think she had already applied by the time she took my class. Otherwise, I would have advised her start with the most recent hours and go backwards. So, oh, thanks, Shannon. Shannon says it's a great tool, and so she endorses it. And so it's free for the taking right here on our website. We'll need you to register as a member. We'll get you on our mailing list, but I think that's a good thing. We'll keep you apprised of different things, give you good updates as well, and not spam you too much. But there's also, as you can see, different kind of resources here. So given 44% of you are just looking into it, this is probably a good place to start. So it'll help you with your application. Well, we've reached that time where we're at the bottom of the hour, and I'm going to do a last call, so to speak, for any questions you guys have before we end up today. Remember to get your handout from the handout section of GoToWebinar. The thing is, we'll make that available to you by email as well as the recording. So, gosh, golly, I can't think of anything else I want to say to you today. Since there are no more questions, I want to thank you for attending and appreciate your patience with me for the bad audio, but hopefully we got back on the right footing. So thank you guys. And again, I always wish best wishes for you and your certification journey. So thanks for attending, and I'll talk to you in 2 months. Next month, it's July 12th because of the July 4th holiday here in the US. So July 12th is our next session. So happy studying, everybody. Bye-bye now.